Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there. Welcome back, everybody.
Good morning. So last night on EEARTS, we were talking about the Russian mass mobilization / draft that's underway. We're going to be continuing that on Evolutionary this morning, as we've split up some of the news, trying to keep it between Earth changes, and of course that includes geomod and other things as well, and also the political end of things. You know, there's so much going on. We are at an absolutely key point in history. You know, we could feel it. I think many people can feel this.
Yeah, and it's going to cause a really huge wave or a rift of energies that is going to be undeniable. And what seems to be going on is something started yesterday where there is some pretty serious headlines thrown out there, and that just happened to be on the International Day of Peace that they're throwing these headlines out and really rattling some cages and making people feel insecure. And that insecurity and that spread of information is going to get catchy as we move forward. And I'm also seeing that we're in for a bit of a bumpy ride. Now, it's just something that we're going to have to put our trust into ourselves and know that we're going to get through it, because this is what we've been preparing for.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, it's go time. It is absolutely go time. And then yesterday on Evolutionary, we were talking about, is it possible that there could really be a zombie apocalypse? Yeah, and when you look at the CDC saying if you're ready for a zombie apocalypse, then you're ready for anything. So you might as well prepare, right? There's so much going on, and we do want to thank all those that are supporting us over on Patreon. We have 116 Patreons, and again, the tiers there start at $1 per month, go up $5, and you know, anything does help. It helps us keep going in this time. And also on Ko-Fi, where you could do a one-time donation to support the channel, or monthly. Do check out Medicinal Foods. These are good people. It's a small little business, family-owned, that's really first and foremost about helping people physically survive these times. Use coupon code EEA. It does give you a discount. We were talking about these dates. Another date that was sticking out was September 24th, was it not? Well, here you go. Volunteers needed for mass casualty exercise. Saturday, September 24th, 2022. Oskaloosa, Kansas. Oskaloosa, Kansas. We need 50 volunteers to act as persons injured from a natural disaster, a wildfire perhaps. Victims will be given an injury card, and first responders will triage and sort the victims for response training. Some role players are also needed to play victims at each of the Jefferson County long-term care facilities located in Oskaloosa, Meriden, Valley Falls, Nortonville, and Winchester. Yeah, okay, you guys, I'm sure most of you guys have heard of this and the whole thought behind these role-playing events. But one thing that we've seen an awful lot of is, again, fires, usually regarding the food supply or energy. And if you are going to sabotage a country before you invade it, those are the things that you do. And here we have a deadly oil refinery fire in Toledo, Ohio, one of the largest ones in the country. Forces shut down, raising concerns over gas prices. 2 people did lose their lives. Again, you know, just another. There have been so many of these, you can't count them.
And yeah, and they're just ongoing too. And it's like, are we supposed to just sit back and say, oh, this is just a huge coincidence? People are just simply clumsy these days.
Well, with millions of people in the country that we don't know who they are at all, and some, I think the powers that be knows exactly who they are. And, you know, they are positioned in areas of vulnerability, and they are going to be targeting infrastructure as time goes on. Fed goes big again. 3rd straight 3/4 point rate hike. Yes, the economy is one of the biggest things that people are concerned with at this point in time, as it's becoming obvious that, yes, this is the beginning of that big reset coming down from Davos. It truly is. It's the beginning. We're watching the beginning of this. 2008 was nothing, and perhaps 1929 will look like nothing as well compared to what they have planned, with everything shifting over into a digital, completely digital world. Orchestrated chaos. That phrase, orchestrated chaos, keeps running through my mind. Global food crisis is worsening as hunger hotspots have been identified. So they found 19 hunger hotspots worldwide. Most of the countries are in Africa, Middle East, and some in Central America. Call for urgent humanitarian action between next month, basically now, and January 2023 to avoid a huge loss of life. Huge loss of life. Afghanistan, Ethiopia, South Sudan, Somalia, Nigeria, Yemen, Haiti are labeled hotspots of highest concern. And, talking to David Adapt 2030, I mean, the numbers that he's concerned with losing their lives because of hunger are staggering. And obviously, we feel that David has a really good grip on this. And, it's just so sad, and it's really not necessary. It's not necessary at all. But just to look at this phrase here, the world is facing a food crisis of unprecedented proportions, the largest in modern history. Makes me think of Tartaria, that whole thing about these civilizations that existed that we really don't understand, because they've completely whitewashed the history away. We could get little clues here and there. We could see things don't seem right, things don't add up. But history has been totally washed away. And, again, there are technologies out there that we don't understand fully. But millions are at risk. And that's really over the next, 4 to 6 months.
Mm-hmm. It's just so much information coming through right now. It's kind of like a little bit stunning. It can set you back on your heels a little.
So we're going to talk about Fiona because she isn't done yet, but this is Invest 98L, and this is in a spot of concern as you see it north of Caracas, north of Venezuela currently. If it survives wind shear and is able to gather strength, its passage seems to be one that is troubling, and over the course of history, this is not dissimilar from a path that many of the big hurricanes have taken. Now, this year had been very, very quiet, but now it seems to be ramping up. And so, this is what they're expecting. They think it perhaps could thread the needle, come out into the Gulf, and some models show it going over Florida. But, hey, it could go all the way over to Texas as well. We're going to have to see, and here you see the tropical eye path through next Thursday. The potential is there for a major hurricane in the Gulf come next week at this time. As you see that number 3 there, that is something that shouldn't be sneezed at. And with the technologies that are out there today, that 3 could very well be a 4 or a 5. Not that it takes that much to cause devastation.
Oh, no, that's true.
Absolutely. So this one would be Hermione. This would be Hurricane Hermione. And Cindy was remembering somebody that made a prediction of a Hurricane Lisa to be devastating, which we're running out of time, but not to say you couldn't get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more hurricanes. You could have that happen. As here we are, what day is today? 22nd, right? September 22nd. We still have maybe about 5 to 6 weeks, but then again, with all the technology out there, it might be longer.
Yeah, we'll have to kind of wait and see.
But do you remember what it was about? Do you remember who it was that predicted? Was it a psychic? Was it somebody?
Remote viewers.
It was remote viewers.
No, I don't remember the name.
Okay. Yeah, remote viewers that had seen massive devastation by a Hurricane Lisa. Now, again, that's not us.
By the end of September, so.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that doesn't look like that's going to be too accurate by the end of September, unless, who knows. But Fiona is still not out of the picture, and it's actually a Category 4 hurricane, and it's expected to hit Canada as a powerful hurricane. This is unusual, a storm getting and making it all the way up into Canada, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and this area through here has a hurricane that could be very, very devastating. So keep your eyes open, batten down the hatches if you are in that area. It says this year water temperatures have been running 5 to 10 degrees Celsius higher than average over the North Atlantic, especially just south of Atlantic Canada. Warmer than usual waters may result in less weakening of the hurricane or a slower transformation into a rainstorm. So a dip in the jet stream over eastern Canada late this week will likely allow Fiona to take a path into the Gulf of St. Lawrence, western Newfoundland, possibly northern Nova Scotia from Friday night to Saturday. So significant flooding, obviously an issue, as well as wind damage. And we see vehicles collapse into a sinkhole. South Edmonton dealership. We've seen a lot of global sinkholes, have we not?
There's been quite a few.
And we have a swarm of 25 quakes rattles California's Salton Sea in 24 hours. I've seen hundreds, so I wouldn't be overly concerned, except for the fact that we did have that very large quake in Mexico, that 7.6. Now, usually the energy transfers downwards towards South America, Central America, and South America, or across into the Atlantic, but you never know again. So, and I do really feel that I've always kind of had the feeling that before there was that Red Dawn scenario in the U.S. itself, we would have major activity like Cascadia and South California going off as well. So we had asteroid 2022 SK4 flew past Earth at 0.039 lunar distance. Closest flyby of the year. Now this, we've had an awful lot of fireballs and the like coming in, but this one was a small one. So this one at most was about 20-foot diameter, would not have been a city killer or anything that we would really have major concern with. Interesting to see, though, NASA is ready to knock an asteroid off course with its DART spacecraft. The Double Asteroid Redirection Test is preparing to crash into the asteroid Dimorphos in an attempt to change its orbit. And to me, these things always hit me as a little bit silly because the technologies out there do way more than that. Of course, there's what they can do, and then there's what they show us, and that's a big difference.
I know. Why am I looking at that Dimorphos and feeling it's some kind of war god?
Absolutely. So I wanted to touch on this, and here you have a statement attributed to Stanley Kubrick of 2001 and 2010 fame. I have committed a great fraud on the American public, which I'll explain in detail. With the cooperation of the U.S. government and NASA, we faked the moon landing. All the moon landings were faked, and I was the one who filmed it all. And we've talked about the fact that the moon is not what it appears to be. And I've seen myself the moon go blank. All the craters disappear. And I was kind of stunned to see it. I remember that. I think it was 4 years ago in North Carolina. It might have been 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago in North Carolina. Just went totally blank. And I feel that it was very, very purposeful, just because it did get me doing more research on the moon and discovering these legends that speak of a time when the moon wasn't even there. And it's people from different areas of the globe that remember a time when the moon wasn't there. And there's actually a term for that, proselenes, before the moon had come into its current position. It's interesting too. There's an African tribe that talks about two brothers that are always at war with each other. They're the ones that put the moon there, and that gets you thinking of Enlil and Enki. But over in Italy, the Etruscans remembered a time before the moon was there as well. Now the moon, what we have gotten is actually what's happening is there's a hologram that's being basically put up on top of the moon. The moon itself is of the same substance and density as Nibiru. And so it's basically a lower fourth density entity that has been hollowed out to use as a space station here on Earth. And it makes a lot of sense. I mean, there's these legends of the moon being a soul trap. We could go on and on with all this. In Italian witchcraft, it's said that the soul goes up to the moon and then comes back and is recycled. As it comes back, it gets caught up in the moon and sent back to be recycled. And this is part of that 3D, 4D loop, and that gets you thinking about what Buddha discovered. All this is an illusion, and we could go on and on with this whole trail of thought.
Well, the problem that they have is that they could not literally land on the moon because the moon's not in the correct density for us to land on, but the moon is there. So this is the whole fiasco and why they had to create this big ta-da, this big show. But they weren't in a place or a position to try to actually explain anything to us, because really in our studies growing up in our science books, there's no explanation for it. So they would have been opening up a huge can of worms if they tried to explain why they couldn't land on the moon when the moon is there.
And so we might as well touch on this now. There, some more info. We're always getting more info coming in, and one of the things that we'd share is we've talked before about Nibiru itself. Again, Nibiru is there. It's a lower fourth density planet, and it's really more of a ship than a planet. Just to recap what we've shared in previous videos for those of you that haven't seen them, because I always see a comment and it'll say something like, "Oh, you finally caught on to this," and it's like, no, about 1,500 videos ago we talked about that, and about 1,700 videos we brought it up, but I understand not everybody watches every video. That would be a tough thing to keep up with. But Nibiru is more of a spaceship now than a planet. It was a planet, and the life force, the entity of Nibiru, because again, just like the Earth, the Earth is the leftover remnants of the entity that we know of as Tiamat. And Earth was in an orbit more on the outside of Mars, in between Mars and Jupiter, as Tiamat. And Tiamat had a longer existence as Tiamat than the remnants have had as Earth. So there's more history as Tiamat than there is history of Earth as Earth, that being the third rock from the sun, so to speak. Nibiru is on life support, so the being associated with Nibiru, as far as an intelligence, a consciousness, is basically, I guess you could almost say it's in a coma. I mean, it's barely alive, it's on life support. And in fact, the body of Nibiru might not make it past this particular cycle. This might be Nibiru's last go round before it literally disintegrates. And this is something new that we haven't shared with anybody before, and I'm sure the powers that be don't want this knowledge coming out. It posed a question in Cindy's mind that she shared with me. She said, geez, I wonder if they're trying to terraform Earth to transfer some people to here. And again, there will be a great splitting of energies. This is why we have the logo that we do on EEARTS. It's representing the split that's going to come at some time when reality is going to split into two. Those that want to stay in a lower fourth density existence, and again, that's really the hellish realms. That's what we call hell, is lower fourth density. That's the home turf of, let's call the people Nibiruans, because they come from Nibiru. And again, Anunnaki is a large term, and so, I've used that Anunnaki term often because it's what people would recognize, yet when we use that term, it's a generalization. There are many, many beings that come from the sky and have interacted with humanity. There's too many to even count. I don't know, thousands, tens of thousands, more. It's just a whole bunch. So this could be Nibiru's last go-round as far as its physical shell, which again is on that 4th density. And it would make sense that they would want to get new homes. Now, there are a lot of beings on Nibiru, and a lot of beings that have accepted the AI, Borg, Draconian program, and, it's everything that entails. And so they are going to be needing a place to go. Now, currently, again, we get that Nibiru itself is outside of Neptune and Uranus's orbit. It has to stay that far away. That it has to stay that far out because it could disrupt the inner planets. As the propulsion system is a black hole, sun, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really important, even though it's in a different density. It's so large and it's so big, it can interrupt this density. So it does feel like these beings are on the understanding that they're going to need to find a new home in the not so far future. So, look at what they're doing for Earth. So I do feel like we are in a fight for Earth's life, and we have to get this energy split done and over so that she herself is not infected.
Absolutely, because she is ascending. She's heading towards a 5th density existence. And all these ages, they're a work in progress. And every cycle, even though we come through the same sort of energies, is unique. That's why we view it as kind of a spiral and not a perfect circle. Because each time through, it is a unique circumstance. So when we look at the actual size of Nibiru, it's somewhere in between the gas giants Uranus and Neptune and also Jupiter. So it's a very, very large body, albeit it is 4th density. Doesn't mean that it doesn't have an effect on us, because again, we are, just like the Earth, multi-dimensional beings. So we exist in more than one density at one time. And in fact, we are living many different realities at one time. When you're sleeping, sometimes you're actually, experiencing alternative realities. Sometimes you're sharing in other co-soul incarnations, so to speak, and you're experiencing part of another aspect of you's life from a different perspective. And yes, this can get confusing. But yes, consciousness is confusing. It is. It's nothing simple.
And it's not always necessarily meant for us to understand and be able to pick it apart. There needs to be some mystery to bring growth.
Yeah, because ultimately, here we are. We are consciousness that cannot be created or destroyed. So again, when you're talking about, well, who's your creator? Well, it's the creator of what? This body? Okay. That's one answer. But the reality is, again, we are part of the universal consciousness, which is eternal. So that aspect of us has always been there. But then at the same time, there's different aspects to us that each carnation brings another new, unique aspect to us. And, when you get down to it, it's amazing, and it's beyond amazing, and it puts things into perspective, because not all the quotes attributed to Yeshua in the Bible are legitimate, and yet there's many other quotes that he made that are not listed anywhere. But when we talk about that, before Abraham was, I am, that's talking about the consciousness before the individual creation. When he speaks of I and the Father are one, yes, and you could say that too, because again, we are all part of that universal consciousness. When we bring up Why do you marvel at all these healings? Because greater things you will do. Again, that is inherent in all of us. And so, when we talk about the deception that's been put on the world as to our true nature, it's so clear to see when you understand what we really are. Anything that points to us being of a slave or a lower origin and possibility is the controllers. And it's just so obviously clear. And we understand not everybody can let go of their programming. There's an awful lot of fear involved in this programming, but many are. And the change that's coming in the world is predicated on this shift in perception.
Mm-hmm. And we were having a discussion with a very near and dear friend of ours yesterday, and we were talking about, how do you identify yourself? Like, where are you from? Because so many of us are here on a mission from different star sources. And I thought that was a really good question. And the answer to that is, it could be limitless as far as where are we from. But when I do readings for people, the ones that are the most prevalent, the ones that are the most important for this incarnation and this understanding, those are the ones that step forward. But many of us have so much DNA from different star systems, different areas, different dominant guides, subdominant guides. It's unlimited. But the ones that we really need to work with and know, those definitely come and step to the forefront. So it's like we have to do a little bit of soul searching for that.
Absolutely. So when we look to this from Earth's sky, Jupiter at opposition soon, closest in 70 years. 70 is a big number biblically. And again, there's so much numerology in there that's hidden for those that understand. Again, things were taught in parables for a reason, because most people couldn't understand quantum physics. I mean, are you going to talk to somebody from 2,000 years ago that, understands nothing more than maybe subsistence farming, perhaps some sort of skill, bartering and trading? Their whole life revolves around a few miles. Are you going to talk quantum physics with them? No, they'll never get it. You got to give them stories that they could kind of relate to, and that's why things are taught at a basic level for people that just won't conceive of the reality of how consciousness works and how things work. Yet, for those that can understand, those that take the time to learn new things, to go in deeper and start to understand the mysteries of how the universe works, you can see that many of these numbers have a symbology behind them. Again, why the 12 tribes of Israel? Why the 12 apostles? Do you really think it was just 12? No, that's all symbolism. There's 12 signs in the zodiac. These are energies. This is all talking about certain archetypal energies that exist in this matrix that we can tap into. So when we look at Jupiter at opposition, Jupiter is a very, very powerful, and I am always hearing Cindy, when she's doing her Vedic charts, talking about it as a Christ-like energy.
Mm-hmm. Right. When I look at Jupiter and feel Jupiter and study Jupiter, it is that divine wisdom and the divine knowledge that we bring with us from one lifetime to the next, to the next, to the next. And we all have a chakra attachment to these planets. So the energy speaks to one another. So the personality of Jupiter, that chakra is open, and as long as it's cleared, we're going to be getting that information from Jupiter. And what I've noticed is people are really moving into this awakening, and when we have our blocks removed and our emotions are healed, we really feel this energy coming in, and it is very much like that Christ consciousness vibration when we are able to feel Jupiter's energy on the maximum level. It brings us up, it raises our consciousness, and all of that divine wisdom that we've had from one lifetime to the next, it does come flooding in. And sometimes our charts are set up to where we need to learn lessons from Jupiter. So Jupiter might not be perfectly set in everyone's chart. It's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be set in a little bit different way for everyone. But that just means if it's not in a perfect placement, well, there's some things that we need to learn. So in learning is a blessing. And it's just nice when you have that deeper understanding of what you're going to learn, how much are you going to learn. Understanding your karma is really kind of understanding the planets.
Yeah, and again, 70 is one of those numbers that can be viewed as a larger generation, because again, the average lifespan in much of the dark age is 70 is doing great to make it to 70. Now, well, if we go back about 4 or 5 years ago, 85 was starting to look pretty doable and likely for most people, and now it's going back the other way. But Jupiter is at opposition on the 26th, so we got 4 days till its opposition. And, again, this is very, very significant because this is shining light on us. Interesting to note, Jupiter is 3.953 AU away. So AU is astronomical units. 1 astronomical unit is the distance from the sun to Earth. So Jupiter is like 4 times as far away from us as the sun is. And yet it does have a significant effect on us. And it's thought to be kind of the king of the planets, in so many ways. And it's a benevolent, and absolutely. And so where Jupiter is in your chart, it can tell you an awful lot about yourself. And so, I'm blessed with Rahu sitting next to Jupiter in my chart, which again, Rahu is passion. You could almost think of it as, it can be used as a lust, as a desire, as that thing that just you are insatiable for. So in my chart, where it's positioned, I'm insatiable when it comes to true knowledge and knowing and learning. And that's just who I've always been. I was a kid who would check out a half a dozen almanacs every other day from the library, back when we had libraries. I guess there still are libraries in so many ways with actual books in them, and just pour through them. I was thrilled to get my history book, even though I know it's a story. I was still thrilled to get my history book, and I'd have the whole history book for the year read in probably the first 2 days. It's just part of who I am, just a lust for knowledge of all types. And again, Jupiter is a benevolent energy. So this benevolent energy, which is all about realization, all about higher vibes, all about that Christ consciousness, all about us shifting perspective, is going to be the closest to us in 70 years. At this time, that's powerful. And it's going to be at the 26th that this happens. So Cindy started by talking about consciousness and how there are going to be things hitting us. There's going to be an awakening hitting us that's going to hit us like a ton of bricks. This has a big part to do with that.
Mm-hmm. A huge part, So when it comes to that Rahu and wherever it sits, it can usually lend a lot of energy to that planet. So, it depends on where it's placed and what the energies are for that energy to come about. But everybody has their own passion, their own love, their own desire, and that's usually where that Rahu sits. But when we're looking at the Jupiter experience, it brings so much expansion. I don't know, you guys have probably heard of, when something grows so much, there's growing pains. And I think that's what we're really in for. We're in for some serious growth, and it's going to take us a little bit of catching up to do. Those around us are going to be awakening, because this Jupiterian energy is going to affect everyone. It's going to affect everyone to a certain extent. It's not like you can disconnect from the planets. We are all one. So, be ready for your friends and your family to come to you and say, hey, what's going on? We might experience some growing pains, and we'll just have to be there to work with them.
Yeah, and this was in the sky the other night when I went outside, and I said to Cindy, holy cow, that's bright. And you could see it's at direct opposition. So the sun's here, we're in the middle, and there's Jupiter, but at night when the light is reflecting on it and it's reflecting back directly to us, it will appear much, much brighter than normal. This is a type of energy that creates paradigm shifts. And so this is part of what is going on. And we're going to touch on the geopolitical in the next video up on Evolutionary. There's going to be a lot of people, because what they are doing now is they're more than making the case for that WW3. They want that WW3. It's part of the big reset. It's part of their plans. But people are not going to go along with it. They're not. This is part of, again, what Nostradamus had seen when he speaks, that there will be many countries in the throes of revolution for years and years. They're going to be in the middle of different sorts of revolution, many countries across the globe, while there is a third WW underway. And it's part of this awakening. We're going to say no. I mean, me personally, even if I was younger, there's no way I would take part in this. So right now they're rounding up people in Russia. At some point in time, they're going to be rounding up people in this country. It's part of their plan, to call in that mobilization draft. And, this time around, there's going to be more people than ever saying, hell no, we won't go. We can't. We understand the bigger picture. How can we? Again, once you understand that mom and dad are Easter Bunny, they're Santa Claus, they're the Tooth Fairy, as much as you might want to go back to your old way of thinking, you can't do it because you know better. You can't go back to those lies.
And when we look at this Jupiterian energy, it's not that it only affects us, it affects everyone. So there's a lot of people out there who are currently asleep that they're not aware of this change and shift, this change in vibration, but the planets force change. It's like a magnetic field, a magnetic force that there's no getting around. It's like once they make their position and they have their energies right at you, people are going to react, but they simply might not understand it. So really the difference between us is we have a deeper understanding of how this energy, how this light hits our body and how we are going to react, because astrology is the study of light and how that hits our body and how we respond to that. And there's a lot of information on that, just so much knowledge and information. We don't have the complete books because a lot of it's been destroyed, but we do have a lot of information that everyone's working on pouring into the data banks, trying to rebuild that divine knowledge. And as we move up in vibration, we will have a more and more complete picture, and we'll have an understanding of how important those star maps really are. And another thing I've noticed with planets, when they come into place, it's not like that energy just hits that day. No, the energy comes in before the time hits and after the time hits. So it's like the vibration comes in, it's like a wave, and it comes in, it reaches a peak, and then it goes out. Like many of you, including myself, experienced the Mercury retrograde. And I thought I was clear of it when it came to making some changes, having to replace our one of our phones, and I thought I was well clear of it, but I wasn't. That Mercury retrograde information was on its way in, and it got me, it snagged me. But thank goodness, we're in the middle of it now, and things are actually starting to settle down. So yeah, I just thought that was interesting information for us all.
So we hope you guys found this interesting. Anybody, again, that does want their birth chart done, and Cindy does a lot more now. I mean, just to give you an insight picture of our life in our house, when we have our free time, what's going on? I'm practicing guitar, and she's studying astrology, Vedic astrology.
Oh, I'm humbly studying it. I'm humbly practicing it because it's such a vast subject, and
it takes lifetimes.
It does. It takes lifetimes. So I'm just really grateful for the little parts I do understand.
And she does, she's gone deeper now into relationships as well, because the stars often can tell you how likely something's going to work and not work when it comes to relationships as well. But you could reach out at EEARTS at Proton Mail or Evolutionaryenergyarts at Gmail. Do allow 2 to 4 weeks as far as the charts go, because it does take a little time to put the charts together. As always, guys, stay prepared out there. Keep putting the positive vibes out. Much love. God bless and namaste.
Namaste.